big thing. There was a British patrol boat that was in the waters off the coast of Iran, in between Iraq and Iran, in the water there. They're saying that Iranians are saying they came into Iranian water, and the Iranians have taken these people, and they're considered now being held hostage. And the British government is saying that this is very serious, and everybody needs to look at this and to see what it is. The Iranians are saying, if you admit that you are in our water, we will let go the hostages. Thoughts?
How do they know they were in the water exactly? I'm in a pool. I don't even know where the deep end is. How do they know? Where the water is? How do we know?
Well, that's the thing. There's, it's very complicated to see which water is whose, but what they're saying is that they came into what the Iranians consider their zone. And of course the British are saying, well, we have GPS satellites to say we weren't there, and the Iranians are saying, well, we have satellites to say you were. But
the Iraqis are saying that they were not in Iranian water also, I think.
The Iraqis
just switched the location too, didn't they? I just heard that there was at first they were spotted in one location, now they're saying it could have been another location.
Yeah, and it's a lot of confusing information about where they actually were. But they were on television in Iran, and they released it all over the country that they showed the hostages who are not visibly injured or tortured, and the woman was wearing the traditional headgear and speaking, saying, yes, we were in the wrong place, which of course, everyone says she was coerced to say that, but Tony Blair is very concerned that this is a violation of the Geneva Convention to show hostages.
Well, and it also seems to be, some people are saying that this is an act of retaliation. There were some Iranians captured in Iraq for distributing arms there illegally, so they're saying this could be a retaliation for that, or the fact that the UN is now, and other countries are trying to put more pressure on them to end their nuclear enrichment program right now.
Supposed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean...
Well, because Iraq supposedly had a nuclear enrichment program too, but they didn't actually.
Well, they were also in violation of 17 UN resolutions. So
so were we by invading them against the UN's advice, right?
That was one.
Yeah, but still, if we break the rules of the UN, why should any other nation follow the rules of the UN?
Well, so I guess then no one should follow them now. I mean, that would be insane if no one would follow them now.
I hate when an incident like this causes such turmoil in the world, and you're just trying to live your life, and the next thing you know, they'll explode a bomb, and then we'll be in a world war.
But who's they?
Well, whoever it is.
Do you think
whatever it is.
Some sort of conspiracy?
No, I'm not a conspiracy theory type of person. But you have to look at both sides of the situation. You have a lot of issues going on here.
So what do you think is really happening with the ship that was in there? You think that these British soldiers were used as pawns to try to ignite another war against Iran?
Well, I just think if Iran really did take them, and they really wanted to hold them hostage, they would have done what they did during the Jimmy Carter era.
Wait, you don't think that they really were taken?
Well, of course they were taken. But my point is that if they wanted to hold them, if this was a purposeful attack by the Iranian government to provoke an international incident, why would they say, well, we'll let them go and we're not going to harm them? We will let them go, we're not going to harm them, but you have to admit you came into our water. And British go, well, we're not going to admit that. Yeah, but we're not going to harm them. We're going to let them go.
They also want the release of their Iranian people that were captured in Iraq for, like I said, distributing those arms.
No, they haven't said that. They haven't said quid pro quo. They said if you admit you came into our water, we will let them go.
Well,
and so do you think?
So what are you thinking that the Brits them in a very great light, and it would show us as trespassers? But we don't know that they would let them go. We don't know how.
Here's the problem. What you just said, us. Because it's now Britain and the United States pretty much against the rest of the world.
So
how did this happen?
So you think now that, are you assuming then that this was something put together by our administration and Tony Blair in terms of staging this act and so that we could get into Iran? Because that would make for a very, maybe, smart president, and everyone seems to be thinking that he can't put two words together.
Say it again.
I'm just saying this.
Wait a minute. When you say that he's smart, I have to hear it again.
Yeah. Say it again and go slow.
It would seem to me that if you're saying that if these...
No, I'm not saying. You can say what you... Here's what happened. These guys went here, okay? Yes. Iran said, that's our water. Get out of our water. We're taking you back. Yes. Britain says, they took our guys. Iran goes, no, you were in our water. Say you're in our water and we'll give you them back.
Where's
so what do you
line
think is the cause behind that?
Well, there are many, many ways to think of it, but historically, have governments ever faked incidents or incited incidents in order to get them into wars? Nations.
Do you think this has
happened historically?
I'm sure it has.
Yeah,
I don't think this is the case right here. I don't think that there was a conspiracy between Bush and Tony Blair to put these soldiers in as pawns so that we can jump into Iran. I think we're going to try to use other methods to stop them.
It's very hard in America when anyone from the Mideast has been so demonized that no matter what, it's impossible for some people to believe that the Iranians in any way could ever do anything ethical in any capacity. That they've somehow been dehumanized to the point where they're not people they're just the enemy. They're terrorists.
We're not talking about the Iranian people. We're talking about their government, who essentially has total control over them. They essentially have zero say in that government.
That's how people see us, I hope, in the world.
That's right, our government, right? I hope people across the world don't think what George Bush is doing represents the American people, because the last election showed it does not.
But let me ask you this, like, what concerns me is that there's this environment now where we're almost more apt to trust our enemies than our allies, and that's very concerning to me.
Well, that is concerning when nearly everyone in
the
this
Bush administration for that. They've completely annihilated all of our trust.
See, I trust our allies and I trust our government much more than I trust our enemies on the war on terror.
But would you say, Elizabeth, that you trust the Bush administration as much as you did when he first took office?
Would you admit
you know what? In a time of war, I think you are in a position where you have to trust
Nearly
your government.
everyone in this administration is under indictment or suspicion. Nearly every person, from Karl Rove to Rumsfeld to Gonzalez. What do you have to do to get impeached in this country?
You know what do you have to do? You know what you have to do. If you have to have Monica Lewinsky come into your office, that's what you have to do.
Let me tell you something. People will laugh at that incident. People will brush that off, and I'm going to be Monica, and I'm going to be discreet because your daughter's here.
Okay.
But let me tell you, while he was enjoying himself, there were things going on in this world. Namely, 3 times he could have had Osama bin Laden within his scope, and he was too busy.
In America, we are fed propaganda, and if you want to know what's happening in the world, go outside of the U.S. media, because it's owned by 4 corporations. One of them is this one. And you know what? Go outside of the country to find out what's going on in our own country, because it's frightening. It's frightening. And if
you don't think we're being brainwashed as a whole country? I think not.
I think democracy is threatened in a way it hasn't been in 200 years, and if America doesn't stand up, we're in big trouble.
If we don't stand up right now against Iran and implement tougher sanctions, we'll have a war here. If you want the war here,
all
let's
I want Elizabeth to do
yard.
is admit it was a mistake to go into Iraq. Just do that.
I don't see it as a mistake.
I know you
still don't see it as a mistake.
In a no-bid contract for 5 years, Halliburton, wait a second, $16 billion. You want to know why we go into Iran? For the money.
Listen.
That's why we would do it. And that's corrupt.
What is oil in this world? Oil is power. So if you want to turn that over to them and be fighting for
We're the oldest democracy in the world, and that's something to be proud of. We're the oldest democracy in the world, and we're a democracy founded on capitalism. But capitalism, the definition is not, where we are right now is capitalism run amok.
Yes.
And there was an ideology in the early democracies that were about a lot more about community and a lot more about helping your neighborhood and your country. And now I feel like we're in a kind of an imperialistic stage, and that's not the ideologies of our forefathers in democracy.
To clarify, in terms of this war, do I think we went in the right way? No, we could have done things a lot better. We should have gone in with more troops. There should have been, I'm not a military strategist,
but do you
I
think
that
Iraq had anything to do with 9/11, Elizabeth?
You know what? That's something that I struggle with.
Did Iraq have anything to do with blowing up the Twin Towers?
I believe that at the time, George Bush our president, was faced with a decision, and all the evidence stated that it did, and all the evidence that all the Democrats who voted for this war saw, and
Not
also
all the
believe
evidence,
that
all the cherry-picked evidence.
Okay, well, the evidence that they saw indicated that Iraq had a part in 9/11, and that they were plotting to use those weapons of mass destruction in
still think this now?
Hang on. He had the choice to make the mistake and go in there, assuming that they did or that they didn't. Okay, I'd rather him make the mistake on the fact that yes, they had it, and at least we went in
Let me
there.
ask you one more thing. Do you think the government purposely misled the American people to believe that Iraq had something to do with 9/11?
No.
Yes, says the crowd.
Do you believe that the government had anything to do with the attack of 9/11? Do you believe in a conspiracy in terms of the attack of 9/11?
No, but I do believe that it is the first time in history that fire has ever melted steel. I do believe that it defies physics for the World Trade Center Tower 7, Building 7, which collapsed in on itself. It is impossible for a building to fall the way it fell without explosives being involved. World Trade Center 7. World Trader 1 and 2 got hit by planes. 7, miraculously, the first time in history, steel was melted by fire. It is physically impossible.
And who do you think is responsible for that?
I have no idea. But to say that we don't know that it imploded and it was an implosion and a demolition is beyond ignorant. Look at the films, get a physics expert here from Yale, from Harvard, pick the school. It defies reason.
Let's get one. Let's get one, because that
I would do it.
is the unthinkable.
It is the unthinkable. But imagine if somebody could convince you of that, could prove it to you, Elizabeth. Just 7.
I don't think it would happen, but I would, if someone could sit here right now and prove that to me, I would.
Okay, we're going to call up Harvard and we're going to call up Yale. And we're going to ask somebody from physics to come and explain.
Wait a second, Bush went to Yale. How good could they be?
We'll go to Harvard. We'll go to Harvard. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back in America, land of the free, home of the brave. Peace out. We'll be right